Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have the book review of a book, Escape Route, by Cassandra Rose Clarke. This is the third book in the Star Trek Prodigy series based off of the TV show Star Trek Prodigy. Now, some of you who are familiar with the name Prodigy probably know it most famously for its unceremonious cancellation earlier this year. The Star Trek brand has been producing a lot of great Star Trek shows and a lot of great not so great Star Trek shows. And Prodigy was unfortunately one of the casualties of corporate belt tightening this year, and so they just canceled it. Rather than just, they had already pretty much made season 2, but they just decided, we're just gonna cancel season 2. And then they said they were not even going to release season 2. And then just to go even further, they took season 1 off of Paramount Plus, which made quite a lot of fans mad. In fact, the Save Star Trek Prodigy petition has, I believe, reached around 30,000 signatures. So it's quite popular. And so the books are out, and I reviewed the first 2 books back in January when they came out. You can find my review. Just look up the name of the book, Star Trek Prodigy, and my name, Jonathan Cohn, and they'll magically appear on your screen. And I also made a video with this really quick talking about the whole Star Trek Prodigy cancellation. But this is the third book in the series. And I unfortunately don't have the first 2 books with me because they're currently at my classroom to be available if my students want to read them this year. And this is just a fun, delightful book. I was able to blaze through it in just a little bit over an hour. I think that most audiences will probably take a little bit longer than that, maybe 2 hours, especially for kids. But it's a really short book. It's 156 pages, but it's super cute, super fun to read. Some good things about the book and some bad things about the book. Some good things about the book, it deals with themes really well. Dal, one of our protagonists, he's going through some stuff in this book, as are some of the other characters, and you really feel their emotions. It's kind of spelled out because it's for kids, but it's handled in such a way that I really appreciated it. And it makes you understand how having those emotions makes them act a certain way and how that drives the plot. It was very interesting. Rocktack also was handled very well here, as was Murph. Murph is a character that really acts more like a thing than a character sometimes, but Murph was really delightful in this book. And you actually get a tiny bit from Murph's perspective, which I thought was very interesting. It's kind of like you don't see it too much from Chewbacca's perspective in Star Wars books because Chewbacca doesn't talk. And Murph's the same way, but it's just really interesting the way that Clarke pulled that off. So that was some of the good in the book. Also, some of the good in the book is the world building. Our characters get stranded on this moon that turns out to be it's not actually a moon, it's a trash heap. It's just so much trash that's gone together that it's become its own moon, basically. And that's just a really fascinating concept. And the world building of what's in the trash, and what forms because of that, and how the society forms, all that kind of stuff was actually really creative and inventive. So I give lots of props for the world building. And for, that much world building in a kid's book is quite impressive. They could have just gone, the editorial team could have gone somewhere else, but they said, no, we're gonna create something new and interesting, which I liked. But I do have some bad parts of the book that I thought weren't quite as good. For instance, the book is very derivative, and in fact follows several of the plot beats of Cassandra Rose Clarke's other Star Trek Prodigy novel, A Dangerous Trade. Now, when I read A Dangerous Trade and the other Prodigy novel, Supernova, I thought they were delightful. I thought A Dangerous Trade was the better of the two, and I think it is, if you compare the 3 books, I think it's the best. But I thought it had a very tight, very well-constructed narrative, and this basically takes the same concept but puts it on a different planet, puts it on with some different villains and stuff like that. But it's the same idea, the same concept. And that's okay twice. But if they do more Prodigy books, we cannot do the same again. They cannot keep repeating the plot ideas for them. I know this is a kid's book. It's meant for kids. Kids aren't necessarily going to, an 8-year-old or 9-year-old who could certainly read this, aren't going to pick up on that. I understand that. However, if you're going to be a good writer, you need to be able to tell unique stories. I read the Star Wars Young Jedi Knights books, and there were some plots that were similar, but overall, the plots really felt unique in and of themselves. And so they were able to do a good job of making each story stand out. And this one, the world building stands out, but the plot doesn't, which is, I think, probably the problem. But it's still such a fun, cute book to read. It's lots of fun. However, I will say that the first two books that I mentioned, A Dangerous Trade and Supernova, basically, Supernova is an adaptation of the video game, by the way, not the TV show episodes Supernova. That gets a little confusing. But those two books, all you need to know is who the characters are and what's the state of the Prodigy team, of the Protostar. If you just know that, like from like the first episode, like you just even look it up online who the characters are. It's a super quick, easy to jump into thing. I started reading, and by chapter 2 of those books, I was already invested. With this book, I remembered all the characters, which was fine, but the location and the predicament that the crew finds themselves in is really, you really need to know what the show's doing, because the finale of season 1, I won't spoil it, but basically there's like the finale arc, and then there's a time jump to later on. And this book happens in between that time jump that happens. And because of that, audiences who have not finished the finale, have not finished to the end of season 1, might be surprised. And unfortunately, unless you have the physical copies of it, you can't watch that anymore because it's not on Paramount Plus. So if anyone, I'm particularly thinking of kids who just, are just picking up the book because they see Star Trek or they see, a book to read, they might be a little bit confused. And I think that the book did an admirable job of trying to explain everything. And I picked up on everything that it was trying to explain. However, I think it could have done a better job, and I think that this book makes it less accessible. With the first two books, you could pick either book, and that could be the fine stepping off point. I think book 1, there's one reason why book 1 works better than book 2 as a stepping off point, but either one of them works. This one, you have to not only do third, but you need to at least know where the show goes at the end of season 1. So, as a whole, it's an entertaining book. I think it's the weakest of the three because it copies the plot from the first one and it's the least accessible, but it's still a delightful story that does really excellent character work. And that's lots of fun. So I would give this a 7 out of 10. I think it was very entertaining, and I really hope we get more Star Trek Prodigy books, especially if the show isn't able to continue on somewhere else. I don't know why they wouldn't. Hollywood is, they need material, especially with the actor strike going on. If only you had a whole season of television to release that you could put back. Anyway, that's the little soapbox. But if we don't get more TV, I hope that the books are successful enough that we get more and they can continue this part of the franchise here. Although based off of the number of Goodreads reviews and Amazon reviews of these books, I am not holding my breath, sadly. I think this will be the end. So if you've read Escape Route, what did you think of it? Did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments section down below. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.